Hello again. We are here to continue with our Eat More Plants program, and today we are working on lesson number 10. And as you know, usually with each lesson, we answer a question. So today's question is, how can I share with my community and plant and food providers, the people who make food for me, the importance of plant-rich meals for our planet? The reason we want to answer this question is because the result of them understanding that is they're probably going to offer and make more plant-rich meals available for you and your friends in your community, which results in empowering you as a kid to actually make a choice to eat a plant-rich meal, which really helps our planet. And there's a lot you can do, but boy, eating a plant-rich diet 3 times a day is pretty powerful, as you know, from previous lessons. So, let's answer that question. How do we do that? Well, the way to do it is to ask, straightforward, and then educate. So let's say you're talking about talking to your family, your parent, maybe at the dinner table. You ask if you could have more plant-rich meals for breakfast and lunch, let's say. And you might want to put out there, hey, I'm willing to go to the store with you and help shop, or I'm willing to, look for new recipes or help cook. And then you want to tell them why it's important to you, what you have learned about how impactful non-plant-rich meals are for our planet, and how you can really make a difference by thinking before you eat and making choices that are good for the planet. So educate them. You have a lot of information. We've gone through this. Let's say you're talking to not your family or your grandmother or grandfather or whoever helps cook for you. Let's say you eat a lot of your breakfasts and lunches through the cafeteria at school. So how do you ask them? So you can do a lot of different things. One thing you could do is you could write a letter to policymakers at the school district or at the state level and ask for more plant-rich options in the cafeteria. You can find out who the chef is at your cafeteria, and you can meet with them and their staff and say, I have some ideas. You can say, could you have meatless Mondays? Could you offer a meal on Mondays that doesn't have meat in it? Would you consider a low carbon Wednesday? So on Wednesdays they offer a meal that's low carbon. You could consider asking them to have a Fearless Friday, and Fearless Friday would be where they give out free samples of a low carbon meal. Like, let's say it's quinoa salad, so they give out little cups of free samples of quinoa salad. They don't serve it that day, but they give out samples so kids could try it without ordering a whole meal, and then they don't like it and they don't have anything for lunch. And then they would serve it later on. You could ask your teachers for plant-rich cooking classes as part of your class curriculum. You could meet with teachers and maybe administrators or the principal of your school and ask to have climate education and information about plant-rich diets incorporated into your different subjects, like incorporated into English. Maybe as part of English you're learning how to write a letter to a policymaker. Maybe you incorporate it in science, and maybe you could definitely incorporate it into art. As you know, art is totally related, as we've been learning. You could do a lot of things. Now, that's all the asking. What about educating not your family, but educating cafeteria staff or educating other kids about plant-rich meals? On social media, you could support, if the cafeteria is going to do a meatless Monday, the week before that, you could post something on social media about the meatless meal that they're going to offer and show a picture of it and say, I love this, it tastes great, or it's super spicy, it's wonderful. So you could support the cafeteria staff that way. If they're going to do a Fearless Friday, you could volunteer to pass out samples. So you can say, hey, this is meatless tacos, I love this, and you're passing out samples. Give it a try, you're going to like it. You could do a survey if your cafeteria starts doing more plant-rich rich meals. You could do a survey once a month to kids and say, what did you like? Which low carbon meals did you like? Which meatless Monday meals are your favorite? And then give that information back to the cafeteria so they can incorporate that into their meal planning. You could create signs and posters that educate people about different plant-rich meal options. In fact, we did that in a past lesson. Little posters that say eat more plants, and they have different drawings of meals, different plant-rich meals. And you could post that around the school or in classrooms or in your cafeteria, even better. You could do a little video and post that on Instagram. And the way you would do that is you do a little video of your favorite plant-rich meal and how you make it. You could ask your friends, say, send me the 20-second video or 10-second video of your favorite plant-rich meal. And you put all those little snippets together, and then there you go. You have a resource. You could post that on social media and say, if you need ideas, look at what all these other kids like to eat and maybe even like to make. And then the last thing is you could start a Eat for the Planet club. And once a month, maybe meet at lunch and come up with different ideas that I haven't even thought of ways to ask and educate your community about climate change and about eating plant-rich meals. So, in summary, there is a lot that you as a kid can do to influence others and create change, which is really exciting for you to know. So a little bit more information about the science of persuasion. Here's the thing. Humans really like equity and balance. They like things to be even in interactions. And one way to persuade, and you probably already know this because you do it with friends and people, is to give something in advance of asking for something. Like I said at the dinner table, say, I'm willing to cook or I'm willing to help shop before you ask them to do something for you. So, you could give somebody these ideas of maybe meeting with the cafeteria staff. You could give them something first. And that's what this lesson is about. This lesson is creating a piece of art that you can give in advance when you're going to ask and educate these different decision makers in your community. So, and you know what? It's just a really nice thing to do. And making art is fun, and giving away art is fun. So that is what we are going to do today. So our lesson is we are going to make paper mache fruits and vegetables. And let me show you what they look like. Here is, I went a little crazy, you know how I get. Here is my basket of paper mache fruits and vegetables. This is my watermelon. Here's a radish. Here is my fabulous, huge mushroom. And then I have an orange. Pretty basic. Banana. My fabulous, huge carrot. And last but not least, a bunch of asparagus. So, you could give one piece of fruit, or you could make an entire basket like this as a class. Every kid could make 2 pieces. Maybe they take one home for their mom or their dad who cooks, and maybe they give the other one to a basket that you're going to give to a decision maker that you're going to ask to help you out with some changes. And I just got this basket at a thrift store for $2. So, and I stuffed the bottom with some packing materials that I got from an Amazon package that I got. So, we are going to do paper mache fruits and vegetables. Okay, before we dive in, I forgot to mention something. I have a friend, he's in high school, and he made a video and posted it on YouTube on this exact topic, things you can do to eat to save the earth. And so I want you to take a look at it if you can. Here is the link. It's only 3 minutes long, and you should definitely watch it because I think there's some of your charter friends in it that you might recognize. So check it out. Okay, so now to our supply list, which we always want to go through before we dive into the project. So you are going to need newspaper. I just got an Independent, which is a local small paper that they give away, to crunch up to make your paper mache piece of fruit or your vegetable. You're going to need masking tape. You're going to need liquid glue and something to put it and mix it in. I'm going to use this, just a piece of Tupperware. This is liquid glue. You are going to need colored tissue paper and a nice selection of colors. Actually, you're going to pick whatever color of the fruit or vegetable you're going to make. So a nice selection of colors, because there's a lot of different colors that you can use for different fruits and vegetables. A colored pencil to do some details once it's dry on your piece of fruit. Scissors, because for some fruits you are going to need to do a little bit of cutting depending on the shape of your fruit. A paintbrush to brush on your glue mixture. A wet rag, because once the tissue paper gets wet with the glue mixture, it starts to bleed. So you're going to need to wipe your hands if you end up having two colors on your piece of fruit. Kind of like my watermelon has the green rind and the red front. I had to wash my hands in between. You're going to want to cover your workspace, again, because that bleeding happens. So take newspaper and cover your workspace so you don't end up bleeding color on the table that you're using. And then if you want to, where you're going to need to create a drying space for your fruits and vegetables. And that needs to be something that has plastic or wax paper on it. So once it dries, you can pull it off without pulling up paper. Like if you put it on paper to dry, it'll dry, the glue will dry to the paper you put it on and it'll lift it up. So you want to have some sort of plastic. And you can use wax paper, or what I did was I actually took an old plastic grocery bag and just covered a plate in it. So that way it'll pull off very easily once it's dry. All right, that's everything that you're gonna need. So let's dive in. Okay, step one is deciding what you want to make. And you want to really think about the details of the fruit or vegetables that you're thinking about. And I kind of drew a blank when I started. So I looked online and I looked around my kitchen. And the ideal thing is if you have the real thing. So today, I actually am going to do a lemon. And I had that sitting in my kitchen. But if you don't have the fruit you want to do, look it up so you can actually see what it really looks like, just like if we're going to draw it. You really want to look at all the details. But I made a handy dandy cheat sheet with different lists of ideas. Fruits, vegetables. Now these are groupings, like I did the asparagus, so I have some ideas for groupings. Or I also put some ideas for halves or quarters or pieces, like my watermelon. So there is your idea page. Okay. So now you have chosen a fruit or vegetable, and you're going to notice things like the shape, the stem, the colors, markings, all that you're going to want to incorporate as much as you can. All right, so let's dive in. I am doing a lemon, and what I noticed is there's this thing at the top where the stem was, and it has this little bump at the bottom, and it's kind of oval shaped. So I am going to get my newspaper from the Independent, and I'm going to crunch it all up. I'm going to look at it once I get it tight. Is that big enough? Yeah, I think that's probably big enough. Maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to put another layer here, because it gets smaller when you put the tape around it. All right, so a lemon's pretty easy, but this is my start. Now that is not a perfect lemon shape, right? That's where your masking tape comes in. Your masking tape is going to help customize and get the shape more tight and compact and realistic. So I'm going to take tape, pull off a piece, and I'm going to start wrapping it around my shape to make it more secure. So there, I just went around once, and it's kind of like an egg shape. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm not going to do it as many times as I normally would, because for the video we don't want to get too lengthy on this step. So I'm starting, as you can see, as I'm working with it with my hands too, I'm starting to get my lemon shape. I'm gonna do one more piece of tape. And then I'm remembering I had that little bump on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a little piece of paper and make a tiny ball with it. There it is, just my little tiny ball. And I'm gonna put that on the bottom of my shape. Put it right there. So I'm gonna get a piece of tape. Actually, you know what, I'm gonna take the tape and I'm gonna put it around the ball so its shape is secure, just like I did with my lemon shape. So there I have my little ball. And I'm gonna take another piece of tape and put that onto the bottom. And the top, I'm gonna squeeze this so it's a little more pointed on the top. And then here on the bottom, I'm gonna put my little bump. There you can see how I've taped it on. And I'm gonna do another piece of tape this way. All right, so now I have, and I'm squeezing it as I go. I'm pushing down my tape to make it smooth. And there I have my lemon shape. I might do one more piece of tape. Appreciate your patience with this. Around the middle to kind of smooth it out. But you are gonna probably have tape covering your whole thing to make it really smooth. And there's my lemon shape. Okay, before we move on to making our glue mixture, I need to do a little video editing. All right. Is this a lemon? No, this is a lime. I have been calling it a lemon. I was gonna do a lemon. So I have a lemon stuck in my head, but then I didn't have yellow tissue paper, so I'm doing a lime instead. Sorry, I was calling it a lemon. I'm sure you're going, what you thinking? Anyways, this is a lime. We're doing a lime. Okay, so to make glue for my lime, I am going to make a glue mixture, and the glue mixture is simply glue and water. And it's about 3 parts of glue, 1 part water, but you don't need to get into measuring. Here I have my glue, my lid's off. I'm gonna put just a little blob of glue. You can see the blob, not very big. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Not too much. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm gonna take my paintbrush and mix it around until it starts kind of looking like milk. It should be not thick. It should be thin. It's gonna be, you're gonna look at it and go, ooh, is that gonna work? It looks pretty thin. I'm actually gonna add a little bit more water because it doesn't need to be sticky or thick. You want it pretty thin. And I'm mixing. And here I'll show you how thin it actually is. I don't know if you can see that in there, but it looks very much like milk. Actually, you can see it through the thing. Okay, so that is my glue mixture. I'll set that down for now. So now we have our glue mixture, and we are going to add tissue paper to add color. So for tissue paper, for most fruits and vegetables, a piece about the size of 8.5 by 11, like a regular piece of paper, is gonna work great. This was an 8.5 by 11 piece, and I just tore it in half. And because I want to do 2 layers, which is a good idea if you're not getting a dark enough color. So you take your fruit and your glue mixture and your brush, and I'm gonna get glue on my brush. Now I moved to a fatter brush because my tall brush was flipping out of my container, but it doesn't matter what size of brush you have, but whatever you have will work fine. So here I am, And I've covered my workspace. You can't see it, but I have a towel covering my lap, so if I drip. And I paint the fruit first. And I'm just gonna paint the glue all over it. And get it wet. So now I have a wet piece of fruit. And I'm going to take my green piece of tissue paper and simply start wrapping it around. And I'm folding it on there. You can see how I'm kind of folding it in, and it starts sticking. It doesn't stick perfectly, so I'm going to add some glue to brush it down and make it wet. You can see, not great, but and I'm going to continue to wrap it around. And it can go on kind of, pardon me, it can go on not perfectly smooth. I'm kind of wrapping it like a present now, rolling it over, and then I'm gonna, you can see the bleeding is happening. I'm gonna try to hold it in as small way as possible. Now I'm gonna go back and paint glue over all the spaces where it's sticking up. I've got some sticking up here. And just smooth it down with your brush and your glue mixture. Now I need to move my hands so I can get where it's sticking up. And now it's starting to all smooth down because it's really wet. And I'm noticing as I'm doing this, I'm seeing, is my bump sticking out as much as I want? I really want that to show up, so I'm really going to flatten out around my bump with my finger. But I'm trying not to touch it too much because every time I touch it, green comes off of my hands. So there I have it. And then what I'll do is the same thing with the second layer to get a little bit darker green. And I'm not going to set this on the paper. I'm going to set it on my plate, covered in plastic, to let it dry. There you have your covered piece of fruit. Now I'm taking my wet rag and I'm going to wipe my fingers off so I don't get green over everything. Now that's a simple fruit where there's just one color and it's a round shape that's pretty straightforward. If you have a fruit, if you've chosen a fruit or a vegetable that has an odd shape, you're going to want to cut your pieces of tissue paper into shapes that match the shape of the fruit. For example, and if you're doing a fruit that has two colors, like this, if you're going to do a slice, like a grapefruit or something like that, the inside will be pink and the outside will be yellow. So with my watermelon, you can see, I started with, I cut out a piece of tissue paper in this shape right here where my finger is. And I painted glue on this, and then I laid that piece of red and then painted over the top of it. I did the same on this side. Then what I did was, I took, you can see there's a third color right here. This is a little bit of pink, and you can kind of see right there. And I took a very narrow strip of pink. I cut it, just a long rectangular strip, and I painted glue on the edge here, and then I just laid on that pink strip. And I had it overlap the green, the red a little bit. And then for the last step, I cut this piece, which is another long of dark green, rectangular strip, and then I had it go to a point at the end. And I painted the paper, the newspaper base first with the glue mixture, and then I laid my dark green rectangle on top and painted down the edges. And actually, I did the red and the pink first and let it dry. Then I did the dark green strip. So another example is my mushroom. So what I did on the mushroom is I covered everything in this light pink color and let it dry. Then I cut a brown circle out, and I cut out a hole in the middle of that circle. So I just laced my piece of brown tissue paper over this stem and down, and then painted glue again. But I did the pink first on the handle, and I covered the whole thing in pink, let it dry, and then I cut my brown circle with another circle and put it on. So you might have some drying steps if you do a 2-color piece of fruit. All right, for greenery, if you want to add greenery, like this radish has greens at the top, and my carrot has some fabulous greens at the top. The way you do that is with tissue paper. And I made a cheat sheet for you, and you'll notice for the radish, for each leaf it has 2 layers. So I actually have 4 leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I did was I took another piece of green tissue and I folded it in half, and then I cut a shape of a leaf out with a large rectangle on the bottom. So here is a cheat sheet. That is the shape, and I did 2 of them, and that's 1 leaf with 2 layers. And this rectangular part at the bottom, what you're going to do is you're going to twist it and then poke it into a hole that you make with scissors in the top of your fruit. Now, for the carrot, I also did some layers. I did 3 greens, and each green has 4 layers. So I used lots of tissue paper. So for one of the greens, again I did 3, I did 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles of green tissue paper. Then I folded that over, and on the open side, I started doing cuts. And that's how you get the fringy look on the carrot. So you can see here where the cuts were. And I didn't go all the way to the inside because that would cut it completely through. And then you open it a little bit on the back side. And here I have 1. This has 4 pieces. 2. This has 4 pieces, which I opened so it's really fuzzy. And this is a 3rd one that has 4 pieces. So I get nice carrot greens. And then what I did for each one of those, you can see here, if I get close, I took the rectangular part at the bottom and I twisted it. So it's like this. For example, these are my rectangles. Let's say these are my 4 layers for my carrot greens. Then this is where they open. You can see how they open. On the open side, I'm making my cuts like this. Cut, 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 but not all the way through. And at the bottom, I don't do any cuts. I leave a section at the bottom. Okay, so pretend this is all cut. And I've got the section at the bottom, and I'm gonna squeeze it together and twist it into a stem, basically. So there I've got my greens at the top, and I've got my stem here. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your piece of paper mache fruit, this, let's say it doesn't have a stem, and you're gonna take your scissors and poke a hole in the top. Just push it right through so you have a hole that's going through. Then you take your stem and you push it into that hole. And you might need to use the point of the scissors to actually kind of grab this and push it down in so your greens are inside. And then I painted a little bit of glue around the edges of the holes so it would dry and secure the greens into the top of my radish. And that's how you do your greens. And you can get creative on how you want to do greens. Those are just 2 ideas for a radish and a carrot. There are lots of different things you can do for lots of different fruits and vegetables. So the last step is you let it dry. Of course, you let it dry before you put the greens in. Otherwise, the greens will bleed onto your fruit. So let it completely dry, poke your hole, make your greens, put your greens in if you have greens. If you don't have greens, this is the step where you want to look at all the details of your real piece of fruit. So I had my banana, but I noticed on a real banana, the end is kind of brown right there. So I took one of my brown color pencils and drew brown on both ends to make my banana more realistic. If you look at a carrot up close, it has these lines going around. So I took an orange color pencil and just put kind of random lines going around. Again, it's already dry, and then I just draw on it. And obviously, for my watermelon, I drew on these black seeds, which give it a very realistic look. Okay. All right. Last but not least, I didn't talk about groupings very much. This is my grouping of asparagus. And I just did tubes. I rolled my newspaper into a tube, and I cut the ends to shred it a little bit and made the shape of the top. I used green and purple. And then I did 4 of them, and I just put a rubber band around it, so it looks like a bunch of asparagus. Whereas you could use like a little piece of cardboard to hold, let's say you wanted to do blueberries, a bunch of little tiny blueberries would be really fun. Or if you had a strawberry basket, you could do a basket of strawberries. Groupings are really fun. So have a great time, and I guarantee you whoever you give these to is going to be absolutely delighted. Okay, have fun.